Welcome back to ARC Pro, and this is the overview for Lab 2's production for Introduction to GIS, NRC 585, and all of its friends. So for our production, we are looking at some grizzly bears, some bears in the western US. We're looking at Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. We've got some data set up for you of these bears, and you are to answer a few questions, 4 different questions, using everything that you've gone over, everything you've learned in Lab 2 here. And you're going to make a couple of different maps, 2 different maps, in fact. So what I want to show off in this overview of the production is just a couple of key tips of how to make this work. Going to add my data in here real quick. As you can see, I've got my regions all set up. I've got my grizzly zones all ready to go. I'm going to start with just those 2. Grizzly zones, our region, Inland Pacific Northwest. Beautiful, beautiful. When I add in my grizzly numbers, we'll note that we've got an Excel file. Watching the previous videos, having gone through the walkthrough, you know that we have to dig into that Excel file to be able to pull out the GrisNum table. There it is. If I look at my GrisNum here, I've got a zone name, I've got bears. That looks pretty easy. Well, if only I had another spatial file that had zone names in it. I only can hope that there's an easy way to join those together, but I'll let you figure that out. Well, the other pieces of data in here is a picture of a bear. It's grizzly.jpg. Our table of, we might say to ourselves, okay, I'm going to add this data in. And we might remember from previous videos that yes, we like calculating statistics. If you do that, however, you'll get this error up here. Data source is missing coordinate system information. Okay. I could peek around in the metadata. Okay, it's just a spatial reference. I don't unknown. What does that all mean? Maybe I'll zoom to it. It's a picture of a bear somewhere by the Snake River. Non-spatial images do not belong in our table of contents. Say that again. Non-spatial images do not belong in our table of contents unless we're going to be making them spatial through a process called georeferencing. We are not georeferencing this bear. This bear does not correspond with any known place on the country. He's just hanging out on the edge of Idaho. Look how tiny he is. You will be using this picture of a bear in other ways. Keep it out of your table of contents. Putting things that aren't projected in your table of contents usually ends poorly. Lab 4 will talk about that some more. Oh, look. Scale of this doesn't match the, well, that's not a problem. So you've got your zone, you got your number, or you got your zone, you got your region, you got your GrisNum. Life is good. When we go to our layout, though, and I'm gonna do a portrait. This looks roughly portraity in this case. One of the requirements of this lab is 2 maps. We know how to add in a map frame just fine. Look, I can add in my map right here. Life is good. Oh, look at that. That's sweet. That looks really good. However, we're looking for 2 different map styles with this production. We flop back to the production document. One of them is the states labeled with the zones, legend of the different zone names, basic reference map, really easy. The other one is using a dot density map to show bears per square kilometer. We remember how to calculate density from previous parts of this lab. But if we want to get 2 maps on there, we're going to have to do a little bit of data fiddling. And that's easily done. If I hop back to my map here, I can insert a new map. That's pretty easy. Add my data in there, no problem. Another thing I can do is right click on my map view. Where'd you go? Sorry, little blink there. We're all good. So another thing that I can do is if I make a new map view here, there we go. I can actually copy and paste my zone, my region, my number here. I can just copy them into my new map document. That was the right click I was looking for before everything went weird a minute ago. So I could have a couple of maps and then I could change my symbology. Let's just change these symbologies real quick to match what I need. Now, I'm not going to do the grizzly density for you. You've got to handle that one on your own. But now that we have two different maps, we can see how in my layout, all right, so map 1 is pink and green. Let me add my other map here. Hey, look at that. Maybe I want to zoom in just to these zones here. There we go. Multiple map frames, easy to do in layout mode. And then you can add all your north arrows and scale bars and whatnot. If you have your maps if you're looking at your maps at two different scales, two different scale bars, make sure we know which is which. Then you can add in different legends and different components. Whichever of your maps is selected, you will know it's selected by the little pins around the edges, and it will be bold in your table of contents. Bold, selected, bold, selected. And you can insert your legends and whatnot from there. So lots of fun mapping to do with these bears and with these components. Make sure to have a ton of fun as you're putting the bears in here. Oh, right, that bear photo. I almost forgot about the bear photo there. So the bear doesn't belong in your table of contents. Obviously, he does belong as a little picture here. So if I went and navigated to my file where my bear is hanging out, here he is. Come on, bear. Our bear certainly belongs on the layout. Right about there. Or wherever you want to put it. Big bear? Oh, it's probably too big. There you go. Have fun placing your bear. Have fun mapping. This just to give you a little bit of an overview of how to make two maps to put into your map layout. Have fun.